how powerful partnerships can be for your business.
So it's become increasingly difficult for companies to try to market and sell direct. How do I get that trust? Go through and leverage that other person that consumer already trusts, build a relationship with them so that then you've got an easier way into that end consumer.
You're able to create great relationships with people who do the exact same thing as you, and it can be fruitful. Go find some communities.
Yeah. And it was like, boom, away we went.
Welcome back to another episode of Next Gen Strategies Podcast. We're switching things up today. I'm doing the intro because you heard enough from me in the last episode about accounting. And Grant's got a topic for us this time about how powerful partnerships can be for your business. So I'm really eager to kind of learn something here from Grant and talk our way through this. So what do you got for us this week?
Yeah, definitely. And, just to clarify a little bit, because I know you were asking me like partnerships in business, like what does that mean? Like, you mean like bring on a partner to your business or becoming a partner of it? No. I'm talking about like business referral partners. So people who maybe are in a similar industry as you, or maybe a completely different industry who you can potentially partner with to, share customers, share clients with, potentially, be able to refer knowledge back and forth. Those are the types of partnerships I'm talking about today. Plus, folks who you can partner with to help you get work done. And so I think we'll have a little bit of both talking about, in a multitude of industries.
So we're not talking formal partnerships where we're going into business together or I'm sharing some revenue with you. It's more or less just kind of relationships.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this, is because, not only from a personal standpoint, but also with just so many different companies that I've been talking to recently. And I know that you've had a couple of companies that you've also been talking to recently too. They're really starting to see the dynamics of how they're doing their marketing and sales change. And so just to give a little bit of context for, everyone, and I personally being on the marketing side, like I've seen this really change over the last kind of year or two, especially as technology and things have changed. So backing up when, I'm going to say 3-5 years ago, right? So you had your traditional marketing and sales tactics, right? Traditional marketing was, okay, I had my website and I might be doing a little bit of email, do a little bit of social media, and my target's going to be, let's say I'm I'm an insurance company. Maybe I'm trying to sell to people. And so I'm going to do things on Facebook. I'm going to do things on LinkedIn. I'm going to try to find these folks that sell insurance too. And so all my marketing is going to be towards those folks who I'm trying to sell insurance to. On the, sales side of things, it might be doing the same thing, right? You're going to get a big list of individuals who your sales team might be reaching out to, doing cold prospecting and doing a bunch of cold calls and stuff. What I think has really changed is that, gosh dang it, people don't answer the phone anymore and attention spans just aren't there. So it's become increasingly difficult for companies to try to market and sell direct to the people who they're becoming, they want to be their customers.
That makes a lot of sense to me because I'm going through in my mind anytime I've probably I'm thinking services, right? Yeah. Like if I bought a service, like I needed a tree cut down or something like that. Like I didn't call someone because I seen a news article or like a TV ad. Like usually it comes from like me asking someone I know who I should use. So that kind of makes a lot of sense. But then when I was thinking through that, I was thinking that's kind of retail now, like outside of like online retail, right? Because like these businesses now, like if I'm a brand that's selling quarter zips, if I go on social media and make videos about these quarter zips and do these really buttoned up professional videos, like they get no engagement and no one cares because it's an ad. But the retail businesses are going to an influencer and having them talk about the quarter zip, and that's generating sales. So it's not a direct to the consumer. It's through a channel like a referral partner, basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's, at some point in time, what's happening is like you might need that ad. You're going to need that website to educate the consumer a little bit more, to help them be a little bit more self-selective in the process. But that kind of initial push, that initial like, well, how do I get that trust? Because we talk about trust a lot, sales marketing, like you got to establish that trust. Well, you're able to do that if you're somebody who's selling a product and you know that your end customer already trusts, let's say another product or another seller. Well, rather than try to, keep going direct to that consumer, why not go through and leverage that other person who's that consumer already trusts, build a relationship with them so that then you've got an easier way into that end consumer.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So basically that old school way of you just got to get in front of the people directly is not really how business is done now.
Yeah. And of course, we're talking very generally right now, right? There's definitely still a need for, some of the different things, traditional methods of paid advertising, right, those other things. But what's also happening is I think if that's all that you're doing, or that's your first thing that you try to do, and I'll talk about that a little more today too, that you may not see as quick of a result, or you might spend a lot more time, money, and effort when you could have potentially been doing some of these other more referral type relationship things, while then you also build the longer term strategic side of the brand.
What I like about that, I think we've probably talked about it before, that's a lot cheaper. The accountant person, right? I'm going, okay, if you're a marketing spend where you're just trying to find relationships with people, in my mind, it's not a $5 per click cost, right? So that I like that, especially starting out, or when you are in growth mode or startup, that lean startup kind of situation. You can probably do that darn near for free. This works too, we've talked about it before. This works too for when a business niches down into something. You have to be probably aware of that too, and kind of find the relationships that you want, because that exists. Or does that make this even more powerful, I guess?
Well, I think that's a really good point. So where I think a lot of businesses before, at least from my experience, a lot of different businesses have, as they've grown, they want to add services, right? So they grow and they want to do more things, more other things, add this, add that, And I think that there's starting to be a shift where a lot of businesses are seeing unless we're really, really committed to being this huge company, and great, because a lot of businesses are doing that, they're doing it successfully. But I'm seeing a lot of businesses they're starting to hit that pause button, where, they've got a decent amount of employees and a good service. And they're like, man, we don't want to add more services. We want to double down on what we do really, really well. Bring some of these things internally, cut some of the fat from a service standpoint, or some things that we just don't necessarily want to concentrate on and do. And from a revenue and profitability standpoint could also be why they just want to be niche in one thing. And where I'm seeing from a partnership standpoint now, it's if there's a bunch of companies doing the same thing and they just want to be niche in one thing, find the people now who don't have your niche, but that can obviously there's still a need for that service. And so you can connect with them.
So a good example just for me then is that if I'm the accountant and I'm only an accountant for beekeepers, because that's what I've decided to niche down in, I'm going to get leads for accounting work for dentists. And if you're the accountant for dentists and you've talked to me before and we've made a connection and we, have a video call every once in a while or grab coffee every once in a while, I'm going to go, oh, I got a guy, or, I know this team over here that does stuff for dentists. Here you go. Yep. So that's kind of what you're talking about here.
Exactly. Same exact thing. And we talked about the construction industry. Might be another example of that, right? Let's say I'm a roofer. I don't want to be a roofer and an electrician and a plumber. I just want to be a roofer. And maybe I just want to do commercial roofing. I don't want to do residential roofing. So maybe I might even reach out to another roofing company that only wants to do residential roofing. So you're going to have that exchange of, being able to, one, have a network that you're in the same industry. So there's opportunities to gain knowledge and learn what other people are doing. But then also too, there's an opportunity for you to, commercial roofer gets residential roofing requests come in. They might switch it over to the other person and vice versa. You build a really strong partnership that way. And it's a great opportunity for, again, not a lot of cost outside of, keeping up those relationships.
So we talked about kind of the niche down businesses, but just generic, most businesses, I'm an IT services managed service provider. I serve just small businesses. This stuff can still work for them too, right? Because they're not niche down, but I'm assuming there's similar referring partners for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So let's say I'm an IT service provider and, I'm looking to serve, a bunch of companies, do all their managed services between 1 and 50 people. So I'm an IT company. Well, before you might be trying to reach directly out to those business owners, hey, I do IT and I'm competing against all these IT people. Now I'm saying, well, why don't you get your list of people who you're trying to go after and then figure out they're outsourcing their accounting. Oh, they're also outsourcing their HR. Oh, they're outsourcing their marketing. Go find those providers who they're already working with and see if there's an opportunity to make a relationship with them, because then it could ultimately lead to business for you down the road.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're almost like, you're still doing the same work. Like you're thinking about who is my ideal, like the ideal client profile,
Correct.
Let's say. But instead of targeting the ideal client, you're working backwards and saying like, who serves my ideal client? Let me like prospect or work and get to know the people who serve them, because that might be an easier way for me to serve that type of business or that business.
Exactly right. And I think I would, it sounds easier said than done, right? Because I think as part of that partnership vetting prospect or process. So like, again, let's say I am that IT company and I'm trying to look at other service providers who might serve the same type of customer I do. Well, I don't want to necessarily just partner with everybody, right? Like you definitely want to make sure, if you're whether you ask them for coffee or stuff, like you want to make sure like you're kind of coming from the same playbook. Like, you've got a similar philosophy in terms of like how you do business, how you treat people. Make sure that like, there's a good genuine culture fit, right? Because, certain people want to work with certain other types of people in businesses and others want to work with other types of people in businesses. It's not a good or bad thing, but you want to make sure, obviously, like you're not just networking to, hey, I do this, like be my partner. Like, no, like you need to go a step further and really do your due diligence there.
Well, what I'm hearing is you're saying this isn't a sales gimmick. This is correct, you trying to find people who do business like you do business. Mm-hmm. And what I guess I inherently do this and never really thought about it this way. But like if I have a client and I want to help them, mm-hmm. like I want to be a key part into referring other businesses to them that kind of fit the profile that I know that they like to do business with, it's a trust factor. Also, I don't want to refer work to my client that's bad work, like that's going to hurt the trust factor of my relationship with my clients. So you're right. Like you want to find culturally other businesses that do work like you, so that there's kind of a full circle of quality work surrounding the client. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be anything that's necessarily like a formal like agreement of like, okay, like, yeah, we like each other. We know we appreciate each other's businesses. Like, let's sign a contract that we're just going to refer everything. Like, I don't like that idea either, because I think it damages a little bit credibility on both sides sometimes if that happens, depending on what it is. But just to have a good, genuine relationship, and it might be with multiple people depending on the use case, but it just, and this is why I want to bring this up for the podcast. Like, I've been seeing this in a plethora of different industries recently, and I'm like, oh, this is something that I'm feeling like, it's a very timely thing right now where folks are looking for like, again, people aren't answering the phones when you're calling directly to the customer. Sales teams are struggling like mad to get in front of people. And so it's time to start thinking a little bit differently about how you go to market and get revenue and get new customers. And I'm really finding that, folks are just a lot more open to these conversations of figuring out like some different ways to, develop partnerships, become trusted relationships. I'm just really seeing that change in the market.
The two things I'm thinking about now, just coming off that before we move on. The first one is the power of having a niche, mm-hmm. niche, however you say
it, right?
Roast me in the comments, I guess, the power of that is because I was thinking in my mind, okay, I have ideal client profile who say it's this business. I'd love to do business for them. They're the perfect business for me. And I go reach out to their IT services provider and just try to make a connection. And they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so uses XYZ company. Well, if I'm just like XYZ company and we're all the same, like I don't have a competitive edge. Mm-hmm. But if for some reason, like I have a niche, like I specifically work with that type of business, I can start explaining to the leaders like, oh yeah, that's really good. Well, if they ever like, need anything different, I only work with businesses like them. And that like turns a light bulb on in certain people's minds, because they go, whoa, this person knows just the core competencies of my business. And if they have any doubt about their existing partnership, or if they just, who knows what happens, they just lose a relationship. Right. You might be thinking of you first now, because like you were very specific in their field. So that's a competitive edge for the niching down. I know it's really hard to do, especially in early stage businesses.
Yep.
But that's an extra competitive advantage there. And then the other thing I was thinking about, because now that you've brought it up, thinking about culture fit and alignment, I had a conversation with a services type industry business, and they said, "Oh yeah, the way we do our contracts, people can, if they're unhappy, they can just leave." And I'm like, "Oh, I really like that. That's good to know, because it's kind of similar to how I do my business." And we both said at the same time, I'm pretty sure, we're like, we don't hold people hostage.
Correct. Yep.
And that's a culture fit, because now I have a certain trust factor that if I refer a client over there and they're unhappy, they can get out, and it's not going to cost them a bunch of money or leave a sour attitude. And they're going to look back at me and be like, "Why did you tell me to do this?" Or why do you think that they're great? So having that culture fit makes a lot of sense.
I'll give you another example of that. So, some companies, I'm going to, again, continue, because we're obviously we're in the services industry, so we can talk a little bit more to this. So a lot of companies, one of the big things that they preach to their customers is how good their technology is, right? So let's say, for example, again, I'm that IT company. I might talk about how great my help desk is, and it's self-service, and you've got these great portals, and you can go in here and it's timely, and it's quick. And if you're a high-tech person, you love that because you can just instantly do it. You don't have to talk to anybody. And then you've got other IT companies who might be like, "Yeah, we've got a decent tech stack, but man, it's our people. We answer the phone. That's our competitive differentiator."
Yeah.
And so if you're an alternative service, again, HR, marketing, finance, whatever, you might be like, "Oh, well, I'm more aligned with that type versus this type." And so there's just a lot of things like that where, how people do their contracts might be another example. Or, hey, you know what? Some people want to have a designated account manager versus somebody who doesn't. It's you can find more of those synergy things. And again, we're talking more a little bit from a services standpoint, but there's other synergies that you'll see in other businesses too.
Yeah, I mean, just manufacturing would be an easy one too. How do they do their terms for shipping, or what's their lead times, or just the general way they do business? If you have alignment there that syncs up for a shared client, it's just a win-win, a triple win, right? It just wins for everybody. Yep. And that's where these things really start to take off and flourish. I could definitely see that. Another thing I don't think we talked about too is that you can also have partnerships or network with basically your competitors, people who do the same thing as you. I think this might be important too, because not everyone is doing a very broad level of services. Yep. You talked about earlier, some are either at capacity or they're narrowing their scope and becoming more niche. So networking with people who do the same thing as you could almost be even more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, I think it's called a mindset change thing, called markets have changed, called a generational thing. I think all those factors are factoring into that, where, everybody is starting to hear about these, industry groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Slack communities. And before, where, I think a lot of people were like, well, we don't want to necessarily be super involved in these communities where you're openly sharing ideas and blah, 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 because they're like, I got some secret sauce. I don't want to necessarily be sharing my secret sauce with my competitors. And I think what's happening as we, start to see these evolve, and what we talked about before of people niching down into really, really specific verticals and types of companies that they're working with, I think that you're really missing out on a huge opportunity if you're not leveraging these communities and these channels to share ideas and work with, other folks who do things that are very, very similar as you and share ideas. And I'll give you an example from a fractional CMO standpoint. But again, for those of you at home, fractional chief marketing officer, because it's a new term. But anyway, so
he has a real business, folks.
I realize.
It exists. He's doing well.
I promise it's not a ghost business.
It's very popular. No, this fractional thing is taking off. It's I'm in a Fractionals United Slack channel, and there's 10,000 people in it.
Yeah.
It's every type of, think about any role in a business, there is a fractional version of that. Mm-hmm. It is super popular.
Yeah. Yeah. So, on that side of things, so I'm in a couple different communities of other fractional CMOs, and it's just been amazing because folks don't think of you as their competition. And I'm in ones with other ones who are in Ohio, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Missouri. Nobody really sees you as competition because there's plenty to go around, and there really is. And one of the things that's been really nice about those is, I mean, I've connected and had at least 15, 20, 25 conversations, virtual coffees with people. And everybody's just sharing ideas. You know, how are you doing things from a process standpoint? What are the types of companies that you go after? Like, how do you do your contracts? Like, you know, do you outsource your work? Do you just use whoever the company was using? Like, there's just so many things that get shared in these conversations. And what I've seen really happen for not only like myself, but I'm seeing with even companies who are doing the same thing as me, is this, it's leading to potentially more clients. And more revenue, because like, for example, I had somebody the other day who was like, yeah, I work specifically with, I think it was software companies and like software and insurance companies or something. And they're like, yeah, we don't work, I don't work with, manufacturing or whatever. I don't remember what it was, but they're like, so sounds like that you've got some experience in that. I'm like, yeah. They're like, great. If I get that, I'm going to give you a call and shoot them your way. It's just, and all that was connecting with somebody on that one in particular, connected with them on LinkedIn. So, hey, you want to get a, virtual coffee sometime, talk to them for 30 minutes, somebody out of, Arizona. And it was like, boom, away we went. Like it was very, very cool. And yeah, I think there's just some great opportunities to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm in a couple as well. I'm in one for CPAs. I'm in one for fractionals. And almost every single one of those communities has a channel in it that says referrals. And you'll jump in there and it's actively just burning down with, hey, I'm looking for somebody that does retail sales in Ohio. I'm looking for somebody who does fruit orchards in New York. Yep. And it's just constantly going through. And now I know we're talking service-based businesses, so that's a little easier, because what has happened is since the world has gotten online and people are working out of their basements, now you as a business who needs a service-based business to serve them, you don't just have to look in your zip code. You can look out. So now you have businesses that are working with other businesses across the entire United States.
Correct.
So they can specifically get into one area and still have enough clients. But if you are in you're a tradie or you're in manufacturing, that does not mean this doesn't work either. Cause I've snooped around in different groups. Like there's a roofers group I'm in, and that same stuff's happening there, because what happens is, this commercial roofer is working for this business owner and throwing on roofs left and right. Well, that business owner owns businesses all around the country too. Now they got a job over in Indiana, and some guys posted on there, hey, I need a good roofer out in Indiana. Yep. It just keeps happening. Yep. And that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's where we're coming from here. Is this is the next gen, podcast. Absolutely. And that's the new thing, is that you're able to create great relationships with people who do the exact same thing as you, and it can be fruitful. Yeah.
And I think it'd be really important to cover just a little bit around, like, how do you do this? Yeah. Right. Like, this is great, Grant and Tyler, but like, how do I actionably do this? And there's a couple of different things you can start to do, and just start small, right? Especially if you're super busy. A couple of things would be, number one, if you're not on LinkedIn, I'm going to say, like, you got to get on LinkedIn. There is such an ability to go there and search for the types of businesses that you want to work with. So one, kind of understand your customer you want to go after, and then start to think about, what are the types of other, folks or potential partners who would work with this type of customer. And then you can start to build those lists on LinkedIn. And so easy enough, like go in, connect with somebody, send them a quick little message, do whatever you need to do there, and just kind of get your name out there, start making those connections. Another one would be, if you're going to an event, or maybe you're, using a bigger tool, like you can start to email these folks. Like email is still effective. Do something like that. And again, it's not, you shouldn't, this goes without saying, I feel like, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't want to get a message from you that says, hey, I'm Tyler Davis. I see that you do marketing, and I like working with some clients like you work with. Would you pass me some clients? No, like, be a little bit more creative than that.
Well, be genuinely interested. Be genuinely interested in that other business, and come at it with a good heart.
Yes,
like we said before, this is not like
a spammy
sales hack. Yeah, this is being a genuine.
Yes.
trying to say, how can we serve our clients better?
Yes.
Because I've had that conversation with people like, if we're full circle, we can do better for them.
Yes. Well, that's exactly right. Like at the end of the day, you want to help that end customer and you want to retain that end customer and really be able to do everything for them. And if you know that you're able to help them with multiple different ways, not only in the service you're offering, but being able to bring somebody else to the table that helps them grow too, that's why you should be in business in the first place.
You talked LinkedIn. I'm going to say a couple other ones because I'm not a big LinkedIn junkie, but I mean, Facebook groups are huge.
Yeah.
Those are places you can hang out. Reddit has a specific Reddit for every, like there's a Reddit HVAC, there's a Reddit plumbers, there's a Reddit CPA, and then there's a community there, and it doesn't mean that you're doing this from a sales standpoint too. We talked way earlier, so these communities are nice to be in just to make you better at your business because you're going to learn from these other folks. But it's a place that you can go and observe. And sometimes then that's how I found a lot of my communities is I was on Reddit and then a sub community showed up. Hey, jump over here to this channel where we talk, and I found another one, and I will say proof is kind of in the pudding here. Grant was telling me about this stuff a couple weeks ago, and this is kind of what spurred this episode. Yeah. And I was like, all right, I've just been thinking about this wrong, I think. I'm very big on, I want to go to the local coffee, with, whatever your local group is. And I want to just, talk to people and blah, blah, blah. But this is so much different. This is very specific and targeted. And the same thing, I'm just going out and looking for my ideal client profile, who else serves them and who else serves them really well. And I like what they're doing. I want to ping them and be like, hey, let's talk. I just want to get to know how, because I might learn something about what is being very successful for you. Yep. I can just have a really good connection and meet somebody really cool. And then on the off chance that it works out for me and we refer some work back and forth, great. But it's been a great experience for me in the short couple of weeks that I've been doing it. And almost every person I've reached out to is like, totally, let's talk. People want to help and people want to talk and see a friendly face. It definitely has been very intriguing for me.
Yeah, I think sometimes business leaders, owners, you're on an island. And when you're willing to say I'd love to learn what you do, I'd like to just share ideas. I think especially post-COVID that people are like, yeah, I would love to just talk about the challenges I have with somebody who gets it, somebody who just understands. Of course, there's the business aspect of it, but I think sometimes too, you can build some really cool relationships that could lead to other things that you didn't even think of, which is such a cool thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think we've covered it pretty well. Yeah. I think the action items out of here is just go find some communities. Yeah. And have genuine conversations with people. And it doesn't have to be at your local town coffee entrepreneurs meetup. It's just get on LinkedIn, set your profile up, start adding people and having conversations, and don't think you have to have this giant marketing plan behind it. It's just go be a person. Yeah. Go be social. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm the accountant saying that.
I love that.
But
go be social.
You accountants, you can do it too. Just hit people up, and it seems like it is, like you said, that is the new wave. It's reverse marketing. Yeah. I'm going to call it, but it makes a lot of sense. I think this has been really helpful for me, honestly, just hearing it again. And it really kind of blew my mind when we first started talking about it. I'm like, yeah, that's just makes sense. So I hope you guys like this as much as I did or learned as much as I did. I know it's way more interesting than QuickBooks and accounting. So please give us a review, throw a thumbs up, and tune in here in a couple of weeks and we'll have another good episode for you.
Yep. Till then, see you guys. Thanks again for joining us today on the Next Gen Strategies podcast.
Be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you really enjoyed it, give us a share on any of your favorite social media channels.
And don't forget to leave us a review.